News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
A stabbing incident at a local convenience store. Good morning, everyone. Montana Morning for Monday, June 20th, 2016. First day of summer. Congratulations, you made it. Right now, the sky's partly cloudy. It's 43 degrees. And our newscast this morning, sponsored by Kootenai Creek Village, the maintenance-free active adult community at Stevensville, offering the best of western Montana living. Our top story this morning, a dispute at the gas pumps at a South Avenue Sinclair convenience store on Father's Day ended with a stabbing incident that sent one man to a local hospital for treatment. Sergeant Jerry Odlin with the Missoula Police Department has details.
At approximately 3:35 p.m. today, Missoula police officers responded to a report of a disturbance at a convenience store in the 1900 block of South Avenue West. Officers arrived and were able to determine that there had been a physical altercation between two males. One male did suffer a stab wound.
Odlin provides an update on the progress of the investigation.
At this point, Missoula Police has made contact with all of the involved parties, and our detectives are continuing to investigate this and speaking to the involved parties. There is no determination on charges at this point.
No names have been released. No arrests have yet been made. As of 6 p.m. last night, the store is located directly across from the rear entrance to Southgate Mall. Flathead County prosecutors have filed charges against 4 people in the stabbing death of a Kalispell man whose body was found in a creek near Creston. The Flathead Beacon reports prosecutors allege 29-year-old Melissa Crone reportedly wanted revenge against 35-year-old Wade Rodio because he had stolen drugs and money from her. Robert Matthew Whittall has been charged with deliberate homicide. He made his initial appearance last Wednesday in Justice Court. His bail was set at $500,000. Court records also said he was apparently angry with Rodio and received Crone's approval, quote, to commit an act of violence, end quote, against him. Crone, Christopher Hansen, and David Toman were all charged Friday with accountability to deliberate homicide for Rodio's death in May. None of the 4 have entered pleas as of yet. Sheriff Chuck Curry said more arrests could be forthcoming. The Montana Human Rights Commission will be conducting an evidentiary hearing in the case of Josh Clark versus Missoula County Sheriff T.J. McDermott starting tomorrow at the Grand Creek Inn. Representing Josh Clark are Missoula attorneys Quentin Rhodes and Nicole Seifert. Rhodes said his client does not wish to pursue reinstatement after the commission ruled political discrimination last September. However, rather compensation for lost wages and benefits.
It's between $300,000 to $25,000 and just short of $1 million, depending on how long the hearing examiner determines that Josh Clark would have continued as a deputy sheriff prior to his retirement.
Rhodes said the final figure would depend on how many more years Clark would have served had he not been forced to retire.
And so the high end of that, if Josh had retired when he was 50, the damages are somewhere in the neighborhood of $325,000, and if Josh had retired when he was 62, it approaches $1 million.
Rhodes said the hearings examiner also has the authority to force the county to pay Clark's legal fees as well as their own, and that both sides have the opportunity to appeal the examiner's ruling in court. A Montana lawmaker is proposing that the legislature rename Columbus Day with a name that celebrates Native Americans. The Bozeman Daily Chronicle reports State Representative Bridget Smith of Wolf Point submitted a bill request last week that would change the holiday to celebrate indigenous peoples rather than the explorer. Smith said Columbus has a legacy of cruelty and slavery, and that he and his exploratory crew committed atrocities on Native Americans. Montana would not be the first state to enact legislation changing the holiday. In 1989, South Dakota established the second Monday in October, federally recognized as Columbus Day, as Native American Day. Earlier this year, the Bozeman City Commission adopted a similar measure. In March, the International Rescue Committee announced it was planning on reopening an office in Missoula County. Since then, many have wondered what the impact of Syrian refugees would be on local facilities, particularly schools. MCPS Superintendent Mark Thane said the school district has not been directly involved in that planning.
We have not been formally involved. We have actually met with some representatives from the IRC because they had questions about what the potential impacts would be on our school system and what our response would be. My basic response would be that we will serve all students that come to our doors and legitimately register.
Thane said the school system is not planning on needing to add staff to facilitate refugee students. Furthermore, he says most will probably not even be from Syria.
It's possible. We could have 50 or so kids. My understanding from the IRC is that although the popular media representation is that most of the refugees being resettled would be Syrian, that's not actually accurate, that most actually come from African nations, many of whom are engaged in civil war.
Thane believes the local school system is well equipped to deal with foreign language speakers, as it already accommodates a large number of foreign students whose parents either work at or attend the University of Montana. Some of the people who were defrauded by a Polson businessman will get part of their money back because of a Montana law that helps victims of investment fraud. The program was established to help victims to recover a portion of the money they lost when full restitution was not possible. Authorities say at least half a dozen individuals and married couples were defrauded by Jack Cross, who pleaded guilty to wire fraud. We reported last week the state has set aside about $186,000 in restitution. Cross was sentenced to 2 years in prison in order to repay $1.5 million. According to Missoula County Attorney Kirsten Pabst, her office dealt with numerous cases of theft and violence last week.
We've had, sadly, kind of a violent week. Filed and opened a total of 15 new cases. Most of those cases were theft cases, which is interesting because generally our methamphetamine cases top the charts, but we had 5 theft cases and then 1 additional deceptive practices case using a stolen credit card.
There was an increase in the number of assault with a weapons cases.
We had 3 assault with a weapon cases, plus an additional aggravated assault case. 2 knife cases. One of them involved a knife and a gun, and then a metal pipe, and then a strangulation.
On top of those, there were 2 felony drug cases involving methamphetamine, and 1 instance where a woman from out of state failed to register as a sex offender when she moved to Missoula. The U.S. government has reached an agreement to end the dispute over greenhouse gas emissions from federal oil and gas leases in Montana, with only modest changes to current practices. The deal was filed in federal court Friday by attorneys for the Bureau of Land Management and 3 environmental groups that had sued to block drilling. The groups wanted the government to force companies to reduce emissions of methane from oil and gas fields. Under Friday's agreement, federal officials must consider such steps but are not compelled to adopt them. Separately, the Obama administration back in March proposed new regulations to reduce methane pollution nationwide. Attorney Eric Schlenker-Goodrich with the Western Environmental Law Center said that proposal offered a better way to address the issue than continuing with the lawsuit. And Democrats get their long-sought votes on gun control after the massacre in Orlando, Florida, but election year politics ensure no changes in the nation's laws. Democrats are expected to vote today to block 2 Republican amendments, saying they don't do enough. Republicans are expected to block 2 Democratic amendments, saying they threaten the rights of gun owners. Our News Talk time, 6:13.
News Talk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Ample sunshine today with our high temperatures in the mid to upper 80s. Partly cloudy tonight with our lows in the low 50s. Breezy and slightly cooler on Tuesday. Area-wide, we'll see our highs in the 70s. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for KECI 13.